Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Duck Chatter. Today we're going to be talking about duck call problems, and Jonathan's going to do part of them, I'm going to do part of them. We wrote some things down because neither one of us got a long memory, but anything that we don't cover and you might have a question on, just email us, we'll be glad to help you. Now, a lot of these things we're going to talk about, y'all already know. Most of you guys that follow us on Duck Chatter are pretty serious duck hunters and pretty serious duck callers, and you know most of this. You may not know all of it though. So anyhow, we're going to go over just a little bit of it. The first thing that I want to talk about is people that leave duck calls in their vehicle with the hot sun. That's a problem, because what happens is the temperatures get really hot, and even like in the summertime, temperatures coming through the windshield like a magnifying glass. It can get up to 140, 150 degrees, and it'll ruin a duck call, an acrylic or a wood. So you got to be real careful not to leave your call in the vehicle and in the direct sunlight. Now, I think you could probably get by if you put it in the glove compartment or something like that, but it's better off just not to put them in the vehicle and leave them there. So anyhow, that's one thing we want to talk about. Be sure not to do that, because it will mess up the call. The call will change sounds. On acrylic call, the band comes off. It's not a good thing. So just, most of you know that already, but I was just going to go over it. All right, now next thing to do, what if the call doesn't sound right? Jonathan, what would you do?
If the call doesn't sound right, typically it's something under the reed. So if you're blowing the call and all of a sudden you start getting sounds that are unfamiliar to you, it's not working right, most likely something you were eating, or sand. If you're in a sandy conditioned area, a lot of times one grain of sand will get underneath the reed and between the reed and the soundboard and cause chaos. It doesn't sound good. So what you would do in that instance definitely is take the reed, grab the reed, and pull the reed out.
Straight forward.
Yeah, straight forward, just like I did. Set it on something flat the same way that it come out. Pop your cork out. And then if you had something like a toothbrush, you could carry one of these in your bag or something and just kind of clean that out, brush it off, take your reed, put it back in the same exact way that you took it out. Lay it in there, make sure you go all the way to the back of the cork slot, and then holding your thumb on the reed so it stays in position.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. While you got it apart, look through the exhaust hole and make sure that nothing got in the exhaust hole. Because if it does, it'll make it sound real dull.
Yeah.
So anyhow, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I didn't.
I was going to go over that anyway, but I had forgot. So when I get a retune in here, immediately what I do is I take everything out of it, of course, the reed and the cork. I run this through it, clean it. If it's a wood call, I have a smaller than the drill hole size drill bit that I just gently run through it like this and clean any debris out of it. And then put the reed, of course, clean the soundboard like I just showed you. Put the reed and the cork back in it and blow it, of course, and make sure it's operating correctly. And you always want to put your cork in by hand, and you want to chew on it usually, but I'm just took this one out so I don't have to chew on it. So you want to seat it in about 3/4 of the way or halfway with your finger, and always use a tool that is smaller than your cork slot so it goes under it. Because if you use one too big, you could break your cork slot.
Show that it goes under the cork slot.
So that's just a punch. So you want it to go underneath there. Because what happens if you use one that's bigger than your cork slot, when you go to pull this back, your cork's going to squeeze a little, and if it's bigger, it's going to catch the front end of that cork tab. Pow! It'll break it right off, and then you ain't got a call no more.
Okay, now that's if you got a problem. But the next thing we're gonna go over is actually how to tune a call, and we're gonna do that from a new reed. So I want you to go over that, Jonathan.
Okay. So if you order a reed set, or you got just extra regular reeds, which is our long reeds, I'll use one to show you. So it's going to be extremely too long.
Nope, show them the bend.
Oh yeah. Habit. I'm just routine duck calls all day. All right, so you want to check the bend of the reed, And
flip it over.
you see how this is doing like that. So that needs to set on the soundboard just like that, because that's the natural bend of the reed. So when air comes in, as it presented here, it's naturally trying to blow up away from the soundboard, and that's what you want.
So what happens if you put one in upside down?
Oh, it sticks bad, and it's
Okay.
high pitched.
Okay.
So if you put it in like this, you see how that reed is naturally wanting to lay to the soundboard. That's bad. So anyway, I would put the reed in after checking the bend. Get me some cork here. Chew on my cork just a little bit to make it pliable. Slide it in.
Make sure that you put your reed all the way to the back of the cork slot.
Yeah, and holding it down the whole time so you don't have no wiggle. Because whenever you go to pull this back, if you don't have this reed held down good, it'll actually pull up under and curl up underneath the back, and it also could break your cork tab that way.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you got a good hold on the reed so it doesn't do that. And then cutting your cork, if you got a big piece of cork, use a razor knife, one that can bend easy. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to do this. I've seen a lot of people like trying to saw and push real hard. You just lay to the bottom side of the soundboard and gently start pulling. And as you're pulling, you tilt the blade and get it to where it lays on the top part of the cork tab. That way you're not cutting your soundboard or anything, and then just gently keep that same pressure until you get all the way to the back, and you're kind of angling toward the cork tab.
To get a scissor effect a little bit too.
And then once I get right to the back, I'll just pull and I pop it off just like that. And then I usually don't have to cut this other side except for the first time I cut it. And basically do the same exact thing. Just gently keeping that blade nice and flat and pulling it to the back, and there you go. Alright, so usually I have preset reed lengths because I know the call. Now the only time I have to use a long reed and then tune from there is like when I get old ones that Rick first made, because they were so different. So anyway, I have to put a long reed in, cut it down, blow it. But I already know by looking at the drill hole how long this reed should be hanging over, and it's hanging over about a 1/2 inch right now, which is way too much. If I was to blow it, this is what it's going to sound like.
It's not even going to sound.
Yeah. So it won't operate. So I'm going to cut down to about where I think I should start out. About a 1/8 inch past the end of the drill hole.
It always start a little bit too long.
Yeah. And I cut small dog ears to begin with.
Okay, well you got lucky. He got it on the first cut.
Yeah.
Which, because he tuned so many, and I used to be able to do that too, but tuned so many, he knows just about the exact length of the reed, so he can guess within a couple of thousandths, really, believe it or not. Which, but anyhow, always start long, and then take a little bit off. A little bit goes a long way when you're tuning a call. The other thing about tuning a call, if you cut the ears more, it's going to make it a little bit higher pitched.
Yeah.
And of course, anytime you take material off of a reed, it's going to make it easier to blow, which makes sense because you got less reed to push with your air.
And another thing I wanted to go over with, like when you pull the call apart sometimes, especially a wood call, well, not really so much a wood call, like you freshly tune it or put a new cork in, if you pull the call apart, sometimes it'll grab your cork or wedge, especially on like a rubber wedge call, double reed or something. It could pull your cork slightly away from the back of your cork slot. And if you got air leaking right here, that's a problem. Your call's not going to sound right and operate right. So you always want to make sure that cork's fully seated to the back of the cork slot.
Okay, so pull that back out and don't seat the cork down all the way and show them what it sounds like. So if it's got even a small error in the back, and you put it back too far.
No, it's just together.
Oh, okay. All right. So anyhow, you heard it just a minute ago, and this time he's got a little bit of airspace behind the cork, so it's not seated all the way to the back of the cork slot. So anyhow, it's going to kill the tone, but
yeah, you can't put no pressure to it.
and it's about half as loud.
Yeah.
So anyhow, make sure that you pull the cork all the way to the back, and you can even need to hold it up to light and make sure you don't see any light behind it.
Now I seated it back to the back.
Okay, a good sharp pair of scissors helps, and a razor knife helps, and even a small Phillips screwdriver or something like that that'll go under the cork slot. That's basically what you need for retuning calls.
These are the scissors that I like to use, and they're just sewing scissors. They sell them at Walmart, Home Depot. You can find them both of those places. These are the ones that I use every day.
Those are Fiskars, I think.
Yeah.
All right, how often do you think you should change the cork on a call?
Depending on wood or acrylic.
Okay, say acrylic.
Acrylic, I would say probably twice a season.
If that much.
Yeah, if that much. Now, wood, you can go a couple of years probably without it. Taking it apart, cleaning it, and keeping it cleaned out. That cork, because it's wood swells when it gets wet, so the compression of the swelling of the wood and the cork absorbing the moisture, your call's going to stay tuned longer in a wood call.
Yeah. The main thing about a wood call, I like the sound, and that's what I blow a wood call. And the cork it just seems like it never has to be changed. The only time I change mine, and sometimes I've gone 3 or 4 years, is if they start sounding flat. But typically they won't unless it's and the cork's really dead.
Yeah.
But most of the time, when you pull the cork out of a wood call, it's tight. And like Jonathan says, because the wood swells also.
Since we're on this subject about the wood swelling, I get retunes in, and you'll see big old claw marks from people putting pliers on them, and we'll get them in where they try to beat it out with a screwdriver or something. Typically, if you just be patient and let the call dry, it'll come apart fairly easy. You got to just take your hand and put it like this, and find put the reed horizontal with the floor and push down, up, and then pull out. If it is stuck really bad though, don't beat it out with stuff, because anything, especially you put something that's too small, you're going to damage the soundboard to where it probably ain't going to work. And then if you put something in that's tapered or it gets too big, you're going to bust your barrel and crack it too. So we highly recommend not to be aggressive with your wood calls to try to get them apart. Put them in a wood box, or not a cardboard box with some newspaper in it overnight, and I promise you it'll dry it out a ton. Because a lot of time people will call me, say, man, I can't get this call apart, and I'll work with them on the phone, and then if they can't get it apart over the phone with me telling them how, I'll tell them just to send it to me. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, when the box gets here, the call is apart in the box, and it's just because it's on a UPS truck or whatever, and it's drying in that box, drawing that moisture out, and it's apart when it gets here.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. How not to kink reeds. Most of the time when somebody kinks a reed, it's dark and they have their call apart. Okay? So what happens is you get it like that, and when you shove it in, it's going to kink. And when it kinks, it's a goner. So make sure if it's dark outside, then this is just a little small deal, but if it's dark outside and you can't see to put your insert into the barrel, push down on your insert on the reed and then put it into the barrel and make sure it doesn't kink. If you just take a little precaution, you won't ever kink one. But as bad as I had to admit it, I've kinked them before too. It's been several years, but I've done it, and I've done it more than once. So it's easy to do. Just be careful in the dark that you don't do that. Let's see what else we're going to talk about. Okay, so every day if you have a wood call, every day that you hunt, it's going to get soaking wet. And as long as you pull it apart every day and have it on your lanyard and let it dry, it's gonna shrink back and go back to the exact same size it was the day before. But if you go 2 or 3 days without pulling it apart, you aren't going to be able to get it apart. And that's what Jonathan was talking about just a little bit ago. So if you have a wood call, make sure you have a lanyard on the insert and the barrel, and you take it apart each day after use and let it hang dry. And if you do that, you will never have a wood call that sticks together and won't come apart.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I know most everybody that's watching this probably already knows that. All right, Jonathan, talk real quick about a quick fix for a call that sticks. You're out in the woods,
Okay.
and you got ducks going everywhere, and your call sticks, and there's nothing worse than that.
Okay, so barring there's nothing underneath the soundboard or underneath the reed in between it and the soundboard. If the call just starts getting sticky, and it's a freshly tuned call or whatnot, so if it has too much hold on it for you, so you're going to get a spit line underneath here. So the quick fix is to pull it apart, and after you get through working some birds, lift up the reed at the tongue of it, and take a real deep breath of air. Really pressurize it and blow that spit line out. Okay, that'll make it ready as soon as you grab it next time. And another thing you can do is take the reed, just like I was just doing, and kind of put some bend in it. Don't kink it, but bend it up and just kind of hold it that way a little in between groups of ducks, and that actually will keep it setting up off the soundboard a little bit better, and will take hold off of it, so it won't be sticking as much for you.
Okay, one other thing that you can do, a quick fix, is you can blow a big grunt into it with your hand closed. Mm-hmm. In other words, pour me just a little bit of water in there. That's good. All right. So if you take it and blow a hard grunt into your hand, then you won't scare the ducks off by the odd noise that comes out. Keep your hand closed and then break that loose. And most of the time right after that, you're fine. You're good to go. But anyhow, that's something good to know as well. So keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got here. All right, the difference between hold and back pressure. A lot of people say that, grab that towel over there. I told you to pour a little bit out. What'd you do? You soaked the floor.
I was trying to make sure it stuck for you.
It did. Okay. So a lot of people get hold and back pressure mixed up. Okay, so hold is a small amount of air that makes the call operate. That's hold. Back pressure is something that's on a competition call that keeps you from using up all your air. Typically on a competition call, they have a smaller diameter hole drilled in them. And so in order to blow a 30 note or a 35 note hail call, if you blow one of these calls and put that much air through it, you'll be out in about 15 notes. But because it has back pressure, it just gets more, let's say, more miles per gallon for the air that you put in it. So that's the difference between hold and back pressure. And a lot of people say they want a lot of back pressure on the call when they send it in, give me more back pressure, but that's not what they want. They want more hold on the call. Let's see here, we're just down to okay. So the last thing, but not the least, is never sand a soundboard.
Never sand on a soundboard. Never.
Never. What happens if you sand it in the wrong spot, it'll stick like crazy and it'll squeal. So we're going to tell you something here we shouldn't tell you, but in case you ever do sand on the soundboard, make sure that you do it in a manner, just do this wood one here.
All right. The ideal thing would be on a flat surface like what I have here with some sandpaper, so you can do it flat. Now a lot of people will carry a emery board for filing fingernails.
That's the worst you can use.
Yeah, because it's spongy and it's soft, so whenever they sand it, it actually troughs, makes a trough in the end of the soundboard, and will completely destroy it where it won't work.
Yeah, and not only that, but it'll make one side lower than the other side.
Yeah.
So don't use one of those for sure, and don't sand it.
Yeah.
Send it back to us. I mean, here's the deal. If you send the call back into us to retune, all we charge is for return shipment. So I think, is it $9 now?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. But anyhow, we can usually get it back to you. If it comes in that day, Jonathan normally retunes them that day or the next day, and then we get them back out. So it's not more than about 3 or 4 days to get your call back to you. But if you do sand on one, do not sand it flat.
Yeah.
Always keep the radius going, because that's the way the duck call operates, by a radius. So show them in slow motion how you would let more air in on the soundboard. If you want to make a call a little bit louder,
or
it's sticking just a little bit.
Yeah, take a little bit of hold off. So here's the tongue of the soundboard. You're going to want to sand from the very tip of that drill hole to here. So just the contour here. You don't want it flat. You want to follow that contour.
So as you're sanding, you're pulling up and down and keeping it round.
Yeah, just like that. And a little goes a long way. So if I'm retuning the call and taking a little bit of hold off, I'll probably do 10 or 15 strokes with medium pressure, and I'm using 120 grit, I believe, is what I'm using.
Yeah.
Of course, and then get the dust off, and then put the reed back in, and then blow the call, and then go from there. If I need to take a little bit more off, I'll do it again. But the thing is, I can't put that material back onto the call, so it's a lot easier to take a little off, put the call back together, blow it, do the same thing, repeat until I get the desired sound or feel of the pressure that I'm looking for.
Okay, so the other thing is, we told you not to ever sand on the soundboard. If you do sand on one and mess it up and then send it back to us, of course we can tell if it's been sanded
Absolutely.
on, and we can tell what's wrong with it, and we probably won't be able to give you credit on that. So make sure that if you do sand on it, you don't do much, just a little bit, and keep it in a circular motion. And like Jonathan says, a little bit goes a long way. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. But the best thing to do, you can most often, almost all the time, you can do more by changing a reed and getting the sound that you want rather than sanding on the soundboard.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's going to be it for Duck Chatter this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that most of you probably knew most of this stuff that we talked about, but maybe there was something on there that could have helped you. But if you have any questions, anything that we missed, because we kind of went over this pretty quick, and I'm sure we missed some things, but I think we got most of them. If you have any questions or anything, just email us here at echocalls@echocalls.com. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.